8 o'clock this morning, we'll talk to former defensive tackle for LSU, two-time Super Bowl winner, now a part of ESPN's college football and NFL coverage. Booger McFarland will stop by at 8 a.m. We'll talk to Boog about the NFL weekend. He was pretty fierce on Myles Brennan this past Saturday on social media. We'll ask him his thoughts on Brennan 72 hours later, as LSU gets prepared for a trip to Nashville.
So what are your thoughts 72 hours later? Because that's what I kind of had for this segment, was for us to dive into, what like the main areas of improvement from this entire LSU team that you want to see this Saturday.
I think there's some real highlights to grow from if you're Brennan. I think that we lose focus that it is his first start. And coming out of a first start, I think there is obvious positives to grow on, and for him to take and advance. There were some things that you saw that were concerning, for sure. The decision making for me being the top concern, and I think that improves with reps and experience. But I still think that there's some questions that need to be answered as far as the long term goes for the position. But week in, week out, I think he's your best choice. And it's not, I don't think that the competition is really there yet, because behind him is two true freshmen that just really are not ready to go. So I believe that Brennan is the guy that gives LSU 2020 the best chance to win. I think that he needs to make vast improvement to be able to compete against teams like Alabama, Florida, Auburn, the high-end teams. Yeah. But I think that the way that the schedule lays out the next couple of weeks, is very advantageous to Brennan, the individual.
That's a great point.
Because I think while LSU can never, let me reverse a little bit, not never, they cannot wash the taste out of what the fan base saw against Mississippi State, against Vanderbilt, against Missouri. The next time they'll have that opportunity will be a trip to the Swamp against Florida in 3 weeks. But as far as individuals go over the next 2 weeks, they can take this opportunity to get a lot better. And I think Brennan would be the best example of that in taking the next 2 games in which you're going to be high favorites. And I know you were against Mississippi State, but this is a different animal against Vanderbilt and Missouri. And just improve, take this opportunity to really work on the things that you see on film from Brennan's point of view that he's got to get better at before you go play a true contender in Florida in the next couple of weeks, because I think that's the next, that is the next big test. And what you're going to see, how well he plays the quarterback position. I expect him to be good over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think so too. It kind of like I said with the defense, I expect the defense to be really good over the next 2 weeks. Like I think you're going to be kind of shocked at the drastic turnaround that the defense goes through, because what we've kind of realized is that Saturday was, as much as it was about talent, it was also it was a combination of getting burned because of some bad personnel. Not decisions, bad personnel things that you were forced into, and then a game plan that was severely lacking, and adjustments that were severely lacking. But I think those are areas that, like, you kind of get slapped across the face of them, and you can't help but acknowledge them and fix them. So I think the defense is going to be much better. I think Brennan will be as well. Now, look, I'm still not sure if Brennan, like, this is everybody after this first game wants to have a referendum on whether or not he's the guy or not, right? And, like, I just don't think that we can do that yet. Like, yeah, I know that it seems like I've spent a lot of time defending him, and it's because I just think objectively his game was a bit better than what the kind of narrative had taken after the game. But I still don't know that he's the guy, right? Like, I don't know if he's going to become the guy where the entire fan base is happy with you. I do believe from what I saw that he can play well enough to win. Like Jordy said, in the elite games, I mean, that's why I'm maybe still in 6-4, because I don't know. Like, it feels like 1-3 in those 4 question mark games still. Depending on what happens over the next 2 weeks, maybe we adjust our expectations again. But there were positives.
I think Grantham, Saban, and Steele are licking their chops.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that from what you saw, because and that is the main area of improvement, right? Is not just decision making, but the quickness of the decision. The entire internal clock just has to speed up a tick or two. My question to you is, should he be willing to engage in more risk, right? Because we want him to make quicker decisions, but sometimes that will lead to more mistakes. So you saw a lot of double clutching on Saturday, and that's because he was afraid of making the big mistake.
Here's my biggest concern after week one of the LSU offense as a whole is that they're back to an identity crisis, is that they don't know who they are. They can't run zone read with Myles Brennan because he's no threat to run the ball. You got to find something that is fitting his skill set, and I think his skill set is pocket, timing, steps, release.
Well, how about this? For to your point, play action. On Saturday in the play action, Brennan was 8 of 9 for 127 and 2 TDs, and had a 158 passer rating, which was even better than anybody in the Orgeron era in terms of play action passer.
He looked very natural in that part of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back and watch the film, him coming off of the play fake, his head is up. He's bouncing on his hops. I mean, on his back drop. Yeah, he's very much in rhythm.
He hit the back foot, and the ball was coming out. That's what you need as a quarterback.
That's who he is. You know, that's what I expect to see Steve Ensminger and Scott Linehan. You know, one thing that Orgeron wasn't asked about, he was asked to evaluate Bo Pelini a ton, and obviously so, and that deserves the question. We did not ask him to evaluate Scott Linehan.
That's a good point.
You know, I mean, Linehan was brought in, and a lot of what we thought his role was going to be red zone and third down. LSU struggled tremendously in those areas.
They did. That's a fair point.
You know, I mean, where was the influence of Scott Linehan on this offense? What is he going to bring that he can say, hey, look, Myles, you do this right, you do this well, we're going to set up positions, we're going to put you in a position to run this more. You know, that's what I want to see from this staff. That's what I want to see from the LSU offense. That's what I want to see these coaches and players kind of working hand in hand, in preparation, getting set to go for another week. Take what you saw on Saturday, trim the fat. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't work there, right? That looks like you're still trying to find out from an identity standpoint who you are, who you want to be, and you know, work it around like T-Bob laid out, and it makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because now Mike Thomas is out of the offense. But what the Saints have done is they've taken their best player and they've really just built the skill set and the
offense naturally evolved all around Mike
him.
Thomas. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, and I understand it's probably easier to do when you have a long-term player like Thomas in the fold, and now you're looking at a one-year guy or a first-year starter in Myles Brennan, but the offense needs to be built around he does good.
Yeah. And it didn't feel that way necessarily Saturday. Not at the beginning of the game. Second half, they started to get going. They started to run the ball more, which then set up the play action. So obviously, right, everything about things you can do. I think you do have to commit to a bit more of a running attack early on.
Especially if you want the play action to be.
Exactly, right? And I'm interested to see how they do that, because last week it was just a lot of zone. It wasn't zone read, like we talked about. They're blocking that backside in, but it was a lot of zone. Do you have more creative kind of running spread attacks in there, like a Dan Mullen type offense, even though a lot of that is predicated on a running quarterback? I guess we'll find out. But even if it's not running the ball, one thing that was oddly absent last week was where last year Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a constant outlet, right? A constant emergency check down. I'm in trouble. I'm not going to think twice. I'm going to dump it to him, let him get however many yards. I didn't see a ton of that this last weekend. And so I want to see more of that as well. I don't want to hold that running back in protection as much as I want him to just kind of flare out or just leak out. And then if Myles, and then with Myles, if his internal clock is too long, or if he's feeling pressure, instead of trying to run, instead of getting happy feet, just dump it. Just dump it. And if you get tackled for no gain, who cares? It's no sweat off your back. If you get 3 yards, that's great. It's like a run at that point. And so I'd like to see more of that. And look, I do think that he has to be willing to engage in a bit more risk to speed up the decision making, because this is something, Jordy, in my opinion, that I saw firsthand that held back quarterback play in the Les Myles era for so long, was the staff pressured guys to be so risk averse that it resulted in holding on to the ball and never taking those shots that you need to win the game, right? Because they were so terrified of throwing an interception, because that was all Coach Myles cared about. And if you do run, you were benched. Like, Myles has to know that he has a little more leeway and can engage in more risk.
Liam Shanahan, starting center for the Tigers, was speaking with the media yesterday and talking about the quarterback play.
We got to make it easier on Myles. He's stepping in. He had a decent game. He's getting a lot of unfair criticism, I feel like. Where we really have to help him and make it easier, and that's what we're working on this week. And I'm planning on trying to work with him and meet with him kind of individually so we can get on the same page even more and see what we can do to make his life as easy as possible, because he's got so much else to worry about.
Shanahan continued that thought on Brennan.
I mean, you always wish that you had more time to prepare, but it's an even playing field. It's not like we're the only team that was at a disadvantage with the time and with everything going on, obviously. So, it's not like we're at a disadvantage because of that. Like me and Myles, I would say that Myles and I are already on like the same page for the most part. It's just, we just got to be better in the games. There's no excuses. So, and we will. I'm confident.
I mean, yeah, those two need time on task together, right? I mean, Liam's new to the team. Myles has been here, but Liam's new to starting the SEC. Honestly, Liam looked way more comfortable because he's played so much actual football than had Myles up to this point. I love this from Shanahan too, though, because I know as an O-lineman, one of the most frustrating things in the world is when a quarterback holds on to the ball too long, and then you end up getting sacked when you feel like you did your job, and then you end up getting blamed. And that was obviously a mixture on Saturday, but I still like Liam coming out there, supporting his guy. And like everything else, I think you just allow room for improvement. I think Brody Miller in The Athletic has kind of written the definitive Brennan Game 1 piece. It highlights the good, highlights the bad, and I just feel like it's a pretty measured take on the whole situation. And the quote that stands out to me, who we should probably see if we can have on again, is from Jimmy Burrow, where he's talking about, The Athletic tried so hard and all these other reporters tried so hard to figure out how did Burrow go from a 6th-round pick to the number 1 overall pick in 1 year and all this and that. And they're talking about like biomechanics and all these things that he did. And Jimmy kind of laughed and was like, yeah, but I mean, the main thing is he just played. He hadn't played in 4 years, right? I mean, and he just finally got to play consistently again. He got used to it and the game slowed down. So experience is the ultimate asset that you're going to have. And so hopefully, that's why, it's a great point by Jordy. The run-up here, these next 2 games, should be great for furthering that experience in games where you can make mistakes and still win. And now when it comes to Florida, we'll see where we're at and how we feel about that game. But you got some real opportunity for growth over the next 14 days.